into another edition of Valpo Sports Night. I'm your host, Drew Taylor. Joined today is Mike Targonski. He's the general manager at WVUR, and Chris Kleinon-Schultz. He's the sports director at WVUR. Guys, first some Valpo topics here. The volleyball team lost at Milwaukee this past week. Cause for concern? I mean, we've seen them struggle on the road a little bit this year.
It was a very interesting match, especially because Valpo started off winning the first two sets, and they looked pretty good. They were very efficient on the attack. They were slowly getting their block into play, but all of a sudden, coming out of the locker room, Milwaukee really seized the momentum. And I wouldn't say cause for concern, but this Valpo team has had its inconsistencies ever since jumping into conference play, and they're definitely going to need to iron out some of their mistakes and find a very solid approach to go into. Because it's not good enough just to start matches well and end matches well. If you're going to win in the Horizon League, you have to play well nearly every single point. It's got to be a consistent factor throughout.
I was able to ask Karen Avery a couple questions before the road trip on Tuesday covering the team for the Torch and address a couple of those issues. And she said that one thing they do is a ton is beat themselves. And I think that's what you could say, Chris, you called the game last night, is that they beat themselves last night. They had 11 service or attack errors just in the fourth set. Right. And they were up 2-0 going into the mid-game there. And the other thing that Karen said with this conference is there's so much parity. And they were playing this past weekend against the top three teams from a year ago, and the teams are supposed to challenge them again. And the big thing she said is you need to win at home and steal a few on the road. Yesterday, up 2-0 against Milwaukee, was an opportunity to steal one of them, and they didn't take advantage of it. So, and the thing you do have to look at is Milwaukee's 8-0 in the Horizon League now, too. So that's one thing you have to take into consideration. But two, they're beating themselves, and they had a chance to beat Milwaukee on the road, which they did in the semifinals last year of the Horizon League tournament, and they weren't able to close the deal. So I would say a little bit of a concern.
Consistency always seems to be an issue, though. I mean, talent is never, ever a problem for Coach Karen Avery. She can pull off basically whoever she wants off that Crusader bench, and they perform.
There's so many underclassmen on this team, but they're performing really well. In fact, before Katie Britton had her season-high 16 kills against Milwaukee earlier this week, the previous 10 matches, the kill leader on the Valpo team was an underclassman, either a freshman or a sophomore. And they have so many weapons to go to. They're very deep, and as Karen has talked with me a lot about, is that she wants to rotate these different people in because everyone works so hard in practice. Something that might be hurting Valpo later in the run is that there really isn't a defined 0-1. They don't have that defined key outside hitter. And while that means that other people can step up, it also can sometimes lead to some of the inconsistencies that'll happen because you don't really know who the hot hand is until you're about a set or two into the match.
Yeah, and she said that the team has a lot of depth in that. Their starting lineup is pretty much based on who they're playing because they could play anybody. And against Wright State, they were able to play everybody, I think, by halfway through the second set. I mean, they were up that big on Wright State last Friday at home. So the team has the depth. They have a lot of very talented players. It's just a matter of getting over the hump and finishing games and closing out games. And they obviously didn't do that against Milwaukee.
It'll be very interesting to see they're in the right of the thick of things in the Horizon League schedule. Still a long way to go, though.
They're at halfway point of this season after this weekend, so there's still a whole bunch of season left. And again, the tournament's really all that matters.
And we're going to switch gears a little bit now and talk about the Valpo football team. They lost 38-14 last weekend against Morehead State on homecoming. Was that their last real chance to get a victory this year?
I'm going to say no, just based on the fact that I don't think you could go winless 2 straight seasons. I think that's impossible. They have a very tough schedule coming ahead, but I would not say that it was their last real chance to get a win. I just want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to see 2 straight winless seasons.
They're definitely a better team than last year's in a lot of respects, and there's still a very winnable contest against Campbell coming up.
Yeah.
If you were to ask me right now whether or not they will win another game, I would probably lean towards no. Okay. Even with Campbell being a winnable game late in the season, you still have to get through a month of very tough games. And especially with San Diego coming up this next weekend at home, that is not a very good match for Valpo on paper. The biggest question is just whether or not they could keep the confidence through the rest of the year. And for them as well, we talked about this just a second ago with the volleyball team, but the consistency of the football team and playing with a high energy hasn't really been there. And especially late in that game against Morehead State, even though they had a touchdown back, they had a couple of fairly major lapses that allowed that score to get where it was.
2 quick questions, though. Is Dale Carlson, in your mind, the right coach going forward? And 2, what about the quarterback position? We know about the defense. We've talked about it on the show many times. That's obviously the weak point of this team. But let's address the quarterback issue, too. Is it time for a change?
First off, it's too early to go against Dale Carlson. You need to have a program go through 4 or 5 years for a head coach to finally see where he's at. Because he still has a lot of guys left over from the last regime. Yeah. Quarterback-wise, I don't think there's a solution on the team because we would have seen it by now. Because that is just a horrible play at the quarterback position. They're never able to sustain a drive. And the big thing for me is that when they get a turnover, they're never able to capitalize it. Multiple times this year I've seen them get a turnover and go 3 and out. And really just change the tides of the game. That gave them the Franklin game. They were up 28-14.
That hurts the defense.
That hurts the
time of
defense.
possession.
Right. The defense is on the field almost the entire game. If there was a solution at quarterback, it would have happened already.
Yeah, you got to give Dale Carlson a little more time to get more of his guys in and get this system underway. And just seeing the optimism that he shows heading into every single contest and the kind of character he wants to instill in the team, I like at least the hard work that he's putting in, even if it's not showing results yet. And I think Eric Hoffman, for a redshirt freshman, is doing a decent job at quarterback. This is a very interesting offense with short runs and short passes that's very tough to really get into. And even behind him, a guy like Nick Milanis could do a decent job as well, but I don't think we're at a position where there needs to be maybe there's a blowout or two in the next couple of weeks. He can kind of shuffle the cards a little bit and try a new hand.
Well, Morehead State's offense, there was a couple of drives where they would do the hurry-up offense, get to the ball, go down, march down the field, and score. That's exactly the way you could see Carlson wanting the offense to go for Valpo, and they just haven't been able to do it. And I don't know, I would say a quarterback. I think there's too many missed passes, overthrown passes, thrown out of bounds. He's getting better protection this year than he has years past. And the running game has actually been fairly effective, especially in the later portions of the game. But that also could be a factor that second-string defenses might be in by them. But I would say that if the quarterback needs to be fixed, and there's no answer.
I agree with you about Dale Carlson. I think it's too early to tell whether he's going to be the coach going forward. But as far as a quarterback change too, and who knows if there's somebody that it's almost too late in the season to insert someone and learn that offense really quickly.
Well, if you're going to be out of the running for the conference, it's never too late to start somebody new.
But I think we've seen too much of Milanis. I think we know what we got in him.
Yes.
I think it's either Hoffman or you go with something else. But
that and Milanis is a senior, so
Right.
you really
You know
don't
what you
gain a
have.
whole lot by playing him.
Right.
I mean, he could be a decent quarterback, but at this point, you're probably best off getting a younger guy in there to build a little more towards the future if you do replace Hoffman.
You have a big freshman class, play him.
all right, more of a general question now about the soccer teams. Who's been more impressive in the net, guys? Christian Mansky or Kyle Zobek, women's team, men's team, respectively?
The way I look at it, having only limited opportunities to see these keepers in action, I look right to the numbers, and for the most part, they're pretty even in terms of their goals against average, the kind of records that they've been putting up. Having covered the women's soccer team a little bit more for the Torch and getting little snippets of the action, I really like the way that Kristen Mansky has played. She's very aggressive in that. She's working very well with that solid back line that has always been a big factor for John Marovich coach teams. And just the way I see it, if it were a toss-up right now, Kristen Mansky might get that slight nudge ahead, although I will pull the bias card on myself simply because I probably follow Mansky's team a little more than Zobek's.
Well, I'm going to pull the bias card myself because I cover all the men's. I DJ all the men's soccer games at home, so I'm going to go with Zobek, just because I've seen Kyle play now for 2 years, 2 different occasions, but mainly this year. I think that he's very quick in the net. He's able to get to the ball, and he's actually done a really nice job closing up on headers and on corner kick opportunities, and getting in front of the forwards for the other team, just really quick to the ball. And he also has really good hands. It sticks in his chest when he gets in there. And there's been a couple times this year where Zobek's had to put up multiple save attempts back to back to back just in order to keep the team in it, in nothing deadlocks and 1-0 leads and stuff like that. I'm going to go with Zobek. He's a really athletic goalie, and obviously, like he said, the stats are really close, but I guess I'll pull the bias card too.
Quick one for you, Chris. I know we did a game against Campbell the other week. Christian Mansky allowed 3 goals, but we talked during the broadcast how it wasn't really necessarily her fault, the product of bad luck and the defensive back line kind of faltering there. Do you see any improvement that needs to be made by Christian Mansky, or is it really just that was the defensive line's fault?
Having talked with her and Tracy Ruse, really the captain of that defensive line, those just seem kind of like fluke goals.
Sure.
The first one that Campbell scored in that match that you were talking about was on a penalty kick given after a handball inside the box. And the couple of goals that the Campbell scored in the second half, there are just these balls that got past the defensive line. It was pretty much point-blank shot opportunities. The biggest question there is just the communication between those lines and proper positioning. And that's something that both Mansky and Ruse have said that they're continuously working on, especially now diving head-on to the conference play for the rest of the season. They're going to try to shore that up as much as possible. And just knowing also the fact, again, that it's a John Marovich team, they're going to come up with a pretty strong defense either way.
I think when it's all said and done, they'll be one of the most decorated keepers, both on the women's side and on the men's side. I think they're both going to set some records here at VU. They both started when they were young, too. That's also a factor. But For now, we're going to take a quick timeout, and when we come back, we're going to discuss the Eagles and the Lions as well as the Major League Baseball postseason. You're watching Valpo Sports Night. Stay tuned.
Hi everybody, I'm Dick Vitale of ESPN, and I'm on VUTV. It's awesome, baby, with a capital A.
I'm Mike Targonski, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Valpo Greek Life, and we're on VUTV.
We're Bacchus Gamma, and we're on VUTV.
We're the Health Center, and we're on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Pastor Jim, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Hooked on Tonics, and we're on VUTV.
I'm Brandon Spinner, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Lisa Meadows, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Women's Ultimate Frisbee, and we're on VUTV.
I'm Tristan Leonard, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Men's Ultimate Frisbee, and we're on VUTV.
Hi, my name is Nicole Graham. I'm an admission counselor here at Valpo, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Air Force ROTC, and we're on VUTV.
We're Mock Trial, and we're on VUTV.
I'm Mitch Dunham, and I'm on VUTV.
Hello, I am Jeremy Kaywood, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Jonathan Johnson, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Sigma Phi Epsilon, and we're on VUTV.
Hi, I'm Claire Flesh, and I'm on VUTV.
Welcome back into Valpo Sports Night. Again, joined by Mike Targonski, the general manager at WVUR, and Chris Kleinon-Schultz, he's the sports director at WVUR. Guys, let's go into some national topics now. Bigger surprise around the NFL this season. The Eagles at 1-3 or the Lions at 4-0?
I'm going to go with the Eagles at 1-3. Last year, the Lions won the last 2 games of the season, 4-0. Very good team. 4-0 now. Very good team. A healthy Matthew Stafford, which is very important for their success, as well as that defensive line is just full of mammoths. I mean, and Ndamukong Suh, Kyle Vanden Bosch, when Nick Fairley gets back, they're a very, very good and aggressive team. And Megatron has, I think, 70 touchdowns already on the year. And if he's going to be getting 3 a game, then he might as well keep on going with the Lions here. And the Eagles, everyone talked about the dream team and the hype of all the free agent signings and all that kind of stuff. They're coming off a division win. They're coming off a quarterback with comeback player of the year. Michael Vick is very good. They have a very good running game, a very explosive offense, and they're just not able to get it done. And they've blown plenty of games already this year. And you would think that they'd be sitting at 4-0, and the Lions would be at 1-3 right now. So I would say the Eagles, in my opinion.
I would probably go with the Lions in this instance, and I think some of the argument depends on how much hype maybe people believed in this dream team concept for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I saw that they had very good signings and had a very good roster, but I also looked around and thought, well, I've had a lot of fantasy football teams in Madden that looked a little bit better than this, and it takes a little while for some of these teams to really get into a rhythm and gel together. I mean, a lot of people thought that as soon as the big 3 came together in Miami that they would win, not 5, not 6, maybe 7 or 8 championships just right off the bat. But I mean, the Eagles came off to a little bit of a slow start. And what I found shocking about the Lions is the fact that they had 2 comeback wins coming into this next weekend against fairly decent teams. Now, granted, the Vikings are 0-4, but they're a much better team than their record shows. And the Dallas Cowboys were playing kind of like the December version of the Cowboys and allow the Lions to get back in. And they've shown that they have quality weapons on both sides of the ball that can get them through even those tough periods, and that's what shocks me about it.
We're not allowed to talk about LeBron. He's locked out.
Also, with the Lions, where do you see them ending up now? We've seen a lot of teams get off to good starts, surprising starts. They're on the cover of Sports Illustrated this week. Do you see a potential slide there or no?
I thought they were going to finish second in the division behind the Packers anyways. I don't think that the Bears are better than them.
Where are the Bears at?
Third, because the Vikings aren't any good.
No.
So I would think the Lions would finish in second. The Eagles, yeah, they have a very good secondary, a very good offense, but they don't really have much on the defensive line. They have no linebackers in their secondary. They have 3 cornerbacks, but, I mean, you can only play 2 at a time, 1. And also your safeties aren't that good in coverage or against the run, so you're not going to be able to win if you can't play good defense. It doesn't matter how much money you have.
Right.
I think a quarter of the way through the season, the Lions are already looking like a playoff lock, probably going to be second to the Packers. The Eagles are going to have a dogfight, as it always is in the NFC East. If they can get a couple wins right now to help push them forward, I think they have a pretty good shot for the postseason. But if they fall to 1-4, maybe 1-5, it's pretty much over for them.
Because the Giants are playing hot.
Yeah, the Giants are hot, and I think Eli
and the
Manning,
Redskins even, too.
This is a bounce-back year for Eli Manning, too. I think a lot of people doubted his ability in the offseason. And I think now, without Brother Peyton in the league, I think he wants to show people what he's made of.
And don't worry about Romo. He'll choke late.
All right, guys, now let's move to Major League Baseball. Both the Division Series and the National League are going to Game 5s. Who wins and why?
I'll start off with my winners for this. I'll go with the Phillies and the Brewers, but I think it'll be close games as we've had a lot of already in this MLB postseason. This Cardinals-Phillies game, I think, is much more of a toss-up, in my opinion, because you are putting aces on the hill for this. Roy Halladay against Chris Carpenter, that's like the best of the best. And in a Game 5 where it's one team moves on and another team goes home, I'm not sure it gets any better than that. What shocks me is that you have Yovani Gallardo, which is still a good Brewer pitcher, but definitely isn't a standout on their staff, and Ian Kennedy, who easily looked like he should have had a Game 1 win just in terms of the matchup against the Brewers, but he kind of faltered in that where Gallardo stole the spotlight. That could be a very close and exciting game, but it's going to be in Milwaukee, and that's about as big a party as anywhere else in the MLB at this point. That fan base, because of the year, has just gotten riled up, and I know Drew, as a Brewer fan, agrees with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with the Phillies here. This is what Game 5 is supposed to be. Your best pitcher's going at it. And I think Roy Halladay, when it comes time to the pressure, Roy Halladay is going to be able to step up and pitch a little bit better than Chris Carpenter. I mean, I like how the Cardinals have gotten here, the comeback wins, very good baseball for them. I expected a sweep. If you remember last week, I said the Phillies in 3. So to get the Cardinals here, for me, is pretty big for them. But I think Roy Halladay is just a big game pitcher. Sure. On the other side, I'm going to say Diamondbacks by a grand slam. How does that feel? Oh, not fearing the beer here. Don't fear the beer here. But no, I do think the Diamondbacks, I think Ian Kennedy's had a spectacular year. I already mentioned he should have had a Game 1 win. Maybe he'll get it in Game 2. But the Diamondback offense has shown a little bit more in the postseason, and they're hungry. They were since the World Series, haven't been back for quite some time. So I know the Brewers haven't either, but I think the Diamondbacks.
Brewers have had the best home record during the regular season. That's nothing to you?
Not in the postseason.
And Yovani Gallardo even too. He got the best of Ian Kennedy in Game 1.
Not in the postseason.
Yeah, I will say Ian Kennedy, just in terms of his performance against the different teams he had to face, he might have been arguably the best pitcher of the National League, just in my opinion, given the numbers that he was putting up. And it was kind of shocking to see him get off to that rough start and for the Diamondbacks to lose that first game, and then even lose to Greinke, though good at home, even while he was on short rest. The biggest question about this Brewers-Diamondbacks game is the early offense. Milwaukee put up a run in the first inning in Game 4, but then all of a sudden the Diamondbacks with a grand slam and a solo right after it, they took the wind out of the sails and they took that game immediately. If the Brewers get off to a good start like that at their home, they're going to be awfully tough to beat. So it'll be pretty easy to tell. It's an afternoon game on Friday, and before it really gets to dinner time, I think you have an idea who might be the aggressor in that game, if not the winner.
As long as Brad Ziegler doesn't pitch for the Diamondbacks, I'm going to call Justin Upton with this grand slam. 3 straight games.
Oh, my goodness. I got the Brewers and Phillies as well.
You would have the Brewers.
Well, okay, but let me finish. I said I would not be surprised if the Cardinals and the Diamondbacks advance because they won Game 4. They're carrying the momentum. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's the playoffs. You can pick anybody right now.
I'm just saying, you got to give me – I'm seeing both sides here, Targansky. Seeing both sides. On that note, we're going to take one final timeout. When we come back, we'll discuss – or we'll debate whether there needs to be an expansion of instant replay in Major League Baseball. You're watching Valpo Sports Night. Stay tuned.
We're Valpo Greek Life, and we're on VUTV.
I'm Rachel Bacher, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Mock Trial, and we're on VUTV.
We're Student Alumni Association, and we're on VUTV.
We're the Acapellas. We're on VUTV.
I'm Dave Klein, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Valpo Greek Life, and we're on VUTV.
I'm Rachel Bacher, and I'm on VUTV.
We're Mock Trial, and we're on VUTV.
We're Student Alumni Association, and we're on VUTV.
We're the Acapellas. We're on VUTV.
I'm Dave Klein, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Connor Lott, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Nick Lindeke, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm President Heckler, and I'm on VUTV.
I'm Jeff Lang, General Manager of WVUR, and I'm on VUTV.
We're the Career Center, and we're on VUTV.
Welcome back to Valpo Sports Night for our last topic of discussion. Guys, Major League Baseball has been slow in the past to change, but do you think there's a need to expand instant replay, even in the playoffs maybe?
No.
No.
I think the games are slow enough as it is, and part of the game of baseball is the human element. And the human element is mistakes, and those mistakes are what are the things that need to be a part of the game. And we've obviously seen that for many, many years. Why all of a sudden now is it a case for us to bring up more instant replay? Okay, I might see it on home runs. I still don't agree with it.
It is on home runs right now.
No, I'm saying I might agree with the home runs. I still don't like it. But I would say that it's just going to keep dragging on. What are you going to give? Each manager gets 2 challenge flags for 9 games, or for 9 innings, and see what's going to happen from there. I don't think you need to expand instant replay. I think you're going to get a new commissioner. That's my opinion. But anyways,
stick that in there.
Right. And plus the umpires that are in there, they try to run the game anyway, so it's just going to give them more power, and that's just dumb.
Well, I like the progression of instant replay, especially because in more modern ballparks, it is harder to tell whether or not a ball is a home run, especially when you go back much earlier in baseball's history, decades upon decades ago. The ball, if it went over the fence, was pretty much out of the ballpark, or the fans were like rows and rows away, and it was pretty easy to see. But now, as close as the fans can get, there are a lot of times where they can reach over, and there's a lot of walls right behind the fences that are sometimes tough to tell whether it hits the boundary wall itself or the wall that happens behind it. So I like its use on home runs, and I wouldn't mind maybe for fair foul calls in the future. No. I don't like full instant replay spread to pretty much everything, and what I would really like to see first is them just to clarify the rules that are in place now. Because only in that incident down in Miami a month ago did anybody really know what the exact rule was, because that was a very controversial case. There's nothing in the baseball rule book that even addresses instant replay. It's just something with MLB. They pocket themselves until they need to bring it out. So what I want to see is more publicity for those rules and to make it clear so that people can understand. And only then, if they want to expand instant replay, should they.
I think balls and strikes is completely off limits. I never want to see that. I never ever want to see that.
If they ever come up with a computerized strike zone, I might be done.
Yeah, that'd be ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
If you could get a robot to sit behind home plate, then maybe I'd be okay with it. But it also means you're taking an umpire out of a job.
We're losing track. We're getting out of track.
Definitely we are.
But okay, black and white issues, fair foul, home runs or not. How can you argue about that? You can make or break a game by just why not? That's a black and white issue.
The whole discussion started coming up after the Armando Galarraga perfect game. I mean, it was already going out there for everything like that.
I never said out or that's up to interpretation of the umpire. That's not out or
so is a fair foul.
Well, it
fair
is
foul
what people
is
are talking about.
Yeah, fair foul to me is black and white. So is
it's a human interpretation. Safe or out was Jim Joyce's call. It would be the same thing. It was a drive down the line that hit on the chalk. It's the same thing.
Safe and out can be. There's a little room for interpretation. It's
either way, it changes the game. If he's safe, if he's out, that's a perfect game. If that's a fair ball down the line, that's a double that broke up the no-hitter.
I see what you're saying, but I'm also going to challenge you on the home run or not. I mean, that's a run or it's not.
Okay, the home run, like I said, I understand the modern ballparks and not being able to see all of them, but you were discussing the fair foul.
I think fair foul and not home runs should be the question. Yes.
Foul balls, or home runs, go for it. Foul balls is the exact same point I just made. The whole argument I was bringing up was a human element, and that's the same thing. It's the interpretation of the umpire, what he sees, and if you're going to give it to him for the fair foul ball, you have to give him for safe out. You have to give it for the strike zone, and that just takes away half the game.
So you're saying just completely take all instant replay out, even with modern technology. Pretty much every other major sporting league.
You know, fine. Keep it for home runs.
Keep it for home runs?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't have it both ways, though. Now you're saying you want it for home runs, but you don't want it for fair foul. You can't have it both ways.
No, I don't want instant replay. I don't think it's good for the game. So right now, the way it stands right now, keep it. The question is expand instant replay.
Okay.
And the answer is no. Keep it.
Yeah, I don't want to set the slippery precedent, kind of like Mike was going into. What if you change it to something else and then all of a sudden almost everything becomes scrutinized? I will throw out, though, one of my reasons why I might want to see fair foul come up in the future is that either in Game 1 or Game 2 of the NLDS, the Arizona Diamondbacks hit what should have been a double down the left field line. It clearly hits off the wall about a foot in fair territory, and it's called foul. And that helped change the dynamic early on in that contest. I think for something like that, where it's a little bit clear, I would love to see it. But the biggest question, one, you have to make sure the rules are clear now, and you got to make sure if you add to it that you're clear with that and are able to set the right standards.
I don't look at this as challenging the umpires. I think this would aid them. I think they're getting so heavily scrutinized. You know that little box during every playoff game shows the strike zone. That's not a great example because it's balls and strikes. But how many times do we just challenge the umpires? We just give them so much scrutiny that doesn't need to happen.
And as an umpire, I definitely know that.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is the play that he's talking about, that umpire should be scrutinized because they add him to the field of play for plays like that. So that's something. Get rid of that umpire.
Okay,
that's what I think. I thought about that for a long time, and referees and all other sports and stuff too. Suspend them.
Okay.
If they mess up, get them out of there. A player can't argue against him. If a home plate umpire wants to make a call against the player, and the player wants to go argue, and the home plate umpire was wrong, give him a game.
Well, I think we've clearly
you have a fifth umpire there at most games anyways to come in for them.
Hotly
or you can bring them
contested
if you
issue.
want.
Hotly contested issue, without a
We've
doubt.
talked about this way too long, but we're going to wrap things up here. I want to thank Mike Targonski, General Manager at WVUR.
Good job.
Oh, good.
Come on. Yeah.
And Chris Kleinon-Schultz, he's a sports director at WVUR. I'm Drew Taylor. Thank you for watching. Tune in next week for another edition of Valpo Sports Night.